Hello, my name is Gary Thornhill. I'm the founder and CEO of PopUp Mainframe. I have a diverse background. Career was started in mainframe operations, and then I moved into middleware, which naturally span into DevOps over time as I was running a company that was innovating, and then back to the mainframe to do DevOps, and PopUp Mainframe was born out of that. Yeah, so it was an interesting one. How we came up with PopUp Mainframe was actually during COVID, and because of COVID, I was CEOing a DevOps consultancy called Sandata Technologies, and loads of our best, I guess, senior, most expensive consultants were ejected from key accounts, and then we had everyone together. And then we started thinking about solving a problem for another client, about how we can, have immediate environments, and that's how PopUp Mainframe was born. Yeah, so looking into it, how I see the challenges in mainframe teams or mainframe organizations is all of the technologies there, but organizationally, in the way the silo's set up and how a lot of the work is done by outsourcers, that can really make innovation for the client difficult. That combined with just the way mainframes tend to have static set environments means there is a shortage, and PopUp Mainframe directly sort of meets that, and we make it far easier to try new things, and the PopUp Mainframe itself is a lot more accessible because you do not need to have green screen skills to be productive on it. So it's there for everyone, and we solve that shortage of environments because we can spin up a pop-up in less than 10 minutes in any cloud and on-prem. Yeah, so how I've seen the mainframe evolve. I mean, when I first started my career, there was a job role for everyone, and it was very much, you had people looking after DB2s, systems, operations, automation, IMS. It was application specific. So, there was a lot of people in an organization, but now people tend to wear multiple hats, and also distributed skills are key. So there is that mixing of mainframe and Linux. So that's where it's changing, definitely over time. That move to distributed movement, and along with initiatives like the Open Mainframe project, I can see and seeing, and this is what PopUp Mainframe does, it allows distributed skills to come onto the mainframe. So I think the biggest ROI on mainframe is moving to automated testing, because we still see so many clients doing manual testing or not doing unit testing, but there's an open source testing framework on the mainframe called Galassa. And so initiative that we're leading and working closely with the Open Mainframe project and Galassa themselves is to start getting the distributed skills like JUnit, JMeter, Selenium, all of that testing expertise in an established organization can now be used on the mainframe. And I think that's going to be really important for reducing the cost of change on the mainframe in the next 5 to 10 years. So that's a very interesting question. I do think where, in the world of big data and high processing, and, I know I've got anecdotal evidence from talking to IBM, new mainframes, new clients are using it. So I can see potential clients using a PopUp Mainframe to test new ways of working and processing because if they do have, you know, a lot of processing to do, mainframe is still the most powerful, the most reliant. Still, that you know, parallel syspex is 30 years, but that's the only true hot failover that actually exists in the world that can process the volume. So I do think that also, the fact is the mainframe is the most sustainable platform and it has the lowest cost per transaction. I do see, instead of people moving off the mainframe, which is very high risk, I do see more and more clients turning to it as processing requirements grow even further. Yeah, so how PopUp Mainframe supports green tech is, first of all, and I mentioned this earlier, traditionally in the mainframe you have established environments that just sort of sit there and they can gather dust. Technical debt tends to be rife. Whereas what we're advocating the use of ephemeral environments. So switch the damn things off when you're not using them. That's important. And that is, you know, that's going to make the dev test cycle shorter, less people, and more change. But that's how I see it. The other, you know, PopUp Mainframe ourselves, you know, our servers are solar powered. So if we're growing, you know, I feel good about that, because I think that's important. I think we need to use more greener energy, because you know, when we hit our iPhone or whatever to look at our bank balance, that has a carbon footprint, and I don't think enough people are aware of that. So PopUp are part of the sustainableIT.org organisation, and I think that change has to come from vendors to, you know, set the scene for the future to reduce the carbon footprint of IT. The biggest misconception about mainframe is that it's an old dinosaur, when, you know, there's pretty much everything you can do in a mainframe then you can do on distributed. You know, there's amazing technologies like ZOS Connect, you know, how it can host web. DB2 itself is just so powerful. I think it's underused. Lots of these new features exist, and I think, you know, that's the biggest thing for me. Everything is there. How do we use that really funky, smart, innovative technology? And that is about people and cultural change. To me, that is where organizations that have mainframe need to focus to do things better and take advantage of those that amazing functionality. Yeah, so I think two of our key clients that have have just taken on 3-year deals, which we're very excited about. I think they are slightly different use cases. A key one, a UK insurance company, for them it's about the developer experience. It's completely revolutionized how the developer cuts code and how they use the mainframe. And so that's very enticing, because that, you know, if you're doing things a smart way and using things like VS Code and pipelines, you know, that's very attractive to any developer, and particularly doing cutting edge work on the mainframe. So I think that organization has really embraced the use of PopUp Mainframe, and they've done some great use cases that, you know, and have taken it further. They've innovated really quickly because they have these environments to do new things. Another key client, for them, you know, the fact is that they can have their mainframe in the cloud alongside Windows applications, and that can all be run in Azure. And our partnership with Delphix means that all of those systems have mass data in them, so they can test end to end with referential integrity. and that quality of testing really lifts them. And again, they can release code far quicker. So, you know, where we've had those proven, established KPIs of doing things quicker and with quality, has meant that those clients love the PopUp Mainframe. I mean, AI is fascinating. I mean, and I think this is what's really going to help organizations, things like Code Insights from BMC and Watson, Code Assistant. I mean, we live in a world with so much documentation. If you can query that and tell you how to do things in these ephemeral environments, to me, it's just going to totally radicalize the way projects are delivered. I see it being with a lot less headcount. So I think AI is going to be really key to that. I do think we have, when I look at AI, I think, oh, I'm going to have to wade through the weeds a bit here, because everyone's jumping on that bandwagon, AI this, AI that. So it was a bit like, you know, when cloud first came out. But I think organizations really have to think what the value is. They could go down a rabbit hole. I think it's really important that they clearly define what they want to get out of it and then be focused on that, not just we must do AI because everyone's on the bandwagon. So again, and being smart and having a plan and looking how it can solve some of your biggest problems, not just for the sake of doing it. Otherwise, you know, FOMO, I see a bit of FOMO creeping into some organizations, whereas, you know, maybe there's some quicker wins before you do that, but how can that help you get there? Yeah, so with what we're excited about PopUp Mainframe, so at the moment, we build PopUp Mainframe on the x86 architecture, so that's, you know, your AWS's and Azure, etc., and on-prem on virtual machines. But what we're looking at is having that running on the IFL, on the mainframe processor, as well as Linux One, and that will mean, particularly some of the tier ones, they can use that agility of PopUp Mainframe, the extra agility of the Delphix virtualization to forward and rewind all of these PopUp Mainframes, and then they can choose to have it on x86, which will suit some use cases, but also back on the physical mainframe as well. They can live in this world, but still keep it on the tin. I see PopUp Mainframe as key to mainframe's talent challenges. And the reason why, and we're actually starting to work with a couple of North American universities to provide them a pop-up. I think it's about the speed, and you can do everything using a PopUp Mainframe that you can do on a green screen using either Eclipse-based GUIs and there's a lot you can do with VS Code. So, you know, to me, we've got to make it easier to use the technology, and it's got to look pretty much what they've learned at universities. So I think, particularly younger people, graduates, they're more interested in what they can do for the world than with purpose, rather than technology for technology's self. So if it's easier for them to understand code changes they're making or bringing in new functionality, they can fulfill their ideas much quicker. Telling a younger person you need to wait a week before a DB2 change is made, they're going to be pulling their hairs out and running away from the office or into their back garden if they're working from home very quickly. So I just think it just makes it so much easier to make change, and it doesn't look any different. So it breaks that misnomer of the big scary mainframe and sort of sci-fi movies from the 70s and 80s. So yeah, I think it's it's amazing what can be done. So what takes started with a pop-up mainframe? I mean, you can literally take our image from Azure, or just download it. So you download, and now the image is compressed to 60 gig. That's installed in 10 minutes. And then we have something called the pop-up manual, which explains all the steps you need to connect that to your physical mainframe and how you start migrating data and config to the pop-up mainframe. So, you know, it's very easy to get your hands on a pop-up mainframe. The slow bit is getting that in the organization, getting it access to new infrastructure is generally the slowest bit, but the pop-up itself, once it's in, again, you can have it with or without security. So certain situations, obviously it's still, when I say without security, it's still secure within the organization. It just means you don't have all of the RACF or ACF2 profiles, so you can quickly set things up and make change and save it to disk, and then you might then want to give a copy to someone who wants to make it a lot more secure. So you can move at pace, and it's just another mainframe. So you can use all those existing skills you got, plus bringing in the distributed know-how, particularly around testing.